The message had traveled faster than light across the galaxy, spreading through hidden communication networks that the hegemony didn't even know existed. On thousands of worlds, enslaved species heard the same words: "We are humanity. We choose to stand. Join us." Na-Rae Kim, Admiral Daeho Kim's younger sister, stood before representatives from 47 different species in the newly constructed Freedom Station, orbiting Earth's moon. As humanity's first galactic diplomat, she faced the enormous challenge of uniting beings who had never worked together as equals. "We are not here to replace the hegemony with human rule," she told the assembled delegates. "We are here to build something that has never existed, a truly free alliance of independent species." The aquatic Mordani delegate, speaking through a translation device, expressed concerns shared by many. How can species with different biologies, different cultures, and different needs work together without someone in charge? "The same way different human nations learn to cooperate," Na-Rae replied. "Through mutual respect, shared goals, and the understanding that we are stronger together than apart." The crystalline Siltec representative flashed with skeptical light patterns. "The hegemony has existed for over 1,000,000 years, because strong species naturally dominate weak ones. This is the law of the galaxy. Then we will write new laws," said Commander Velnara, a former hegemony officer whose species had joined the rebellion. "The humans have shown us that strength comes from cooperation, not domination." While diplomats worked to build the Free Species Alliance, human scientists and engineers were pushing the boundaries of what was possible. Dr. Sora Choi's latest breakthrough had stunned even her own research team. "We're not just manipulating quantum fields anymore," she explained to Engineer Yoon. "We're creating stable pocket dimensions that exist parallel to normal space. We can store energy, hide ships, even create weapons that attack from impossible angles." "How is this possible?" Yoon asked. "The alien databases show nothing like this." "That's because we're thinking differently than they do. The hegemony views technology as a tool for control. We see it as a tool for liberation. That changes everything." The new human ships were unlike anything ever seen in the galaxy. The UES Transcendence, still under construction in the lunar shipyards, was designed not just as a warship but as a mobile base for the Free Species Alliance. Captain Jun Ho Nam studied the ship's specifications with amazement. "It's not just big, it's smart. The entire hull is made of programmable matter that can reshape itself for different missions. It also incorporates technology from every species in our alliance," Engineer Yoon added proudly. "Mordani biocomputing, Siltec quantum processors, Lumari energy cores, and human innovation to tie it all together." But even as the alliance grew stronger, the hegemony was preparing its ultimate response. In the ancient capital world at the galaxy's core, Overlord Kethmog was assembling the largest military force in galactic history. "Bring the deep fleet out of hibernation," he ordered his generals. "Activate the planet-killer weapons. If we cannot rule the galaxy, we will cleanse it of rebellion." The deep fleet consisted of ships the size of moons, constructed over millions of years, and kept in reserve for the greatest emergencies. They possessed weapons that could crack planets and shields that could withstand stellar explosions. War Commander Threxnall, despite his previous failures, was given command of the fleet's vanguard. "You will proceed directly to the human homeworld," Kethmog told him. "Destroy everything. Leave no trace that rebellion ever existed." On Earth, long-range sensors detected the massive energy signatures moving through space toward the solar system. The fleet was so large that it bent space-time around itself, creating gravitational waves that could be measured from light-years away. "How long do we have?" President Lee asked Admiral Kim during an emergency meeting. 6 weeks, maybe less. They're traveling faster than anything we've seen before." General Cho looked at the tactical displays showing the approaching enemy force. "We can't fight that with conventional tactics. Even with our new technology, they outnumber us 1,000 to 1. "Then we don't fight conventionally," Captain Nam said. "We've been thinking too small. This isn't just about defending Earth anymore. It's about liberating the entire galaxy." Dr. Park had been analyzing intelligence reports from across hegemony space. "The rebellions are spreading faster than they can suppress them. Over 300 species are now in open revolt, but they're not coordinated, and many are being crushed individually." "What if we could coordinate them?" Na-Rae Kim asked. "What if we could turn this from scattered rebellions into a unified galactic war?" Communications specialist Sung Hwan Oh had been working on that exact problem. I've established secure networks with resistance movements on 500 worlds. We can coordinate simultaneous strikes across the entire galaxy. The plan that emerged was breathtaking in its scope. Rather than waiting for the hegemony to attack Earth, the Free Species Alliance would launch coordinated strikes against hegemony strongholds throughout the galaxy. We hit them everywhere at once, Admiral Kim explained to the Allied commanders. Force them to divide their attention among hundreds of battles instead of concentrating on Earth. Captain Yoon Ji Han volunteered to lead the most dangerous mission, a strike at the hegemony capital world itself. If we can disable their central command, the rest of their forces will be paralyzed. That's suicide, General Cho warned. The capital is protected by weapons that can destroy entire solar systems. Maybe, Han replied. But if we don't try, they'll destroy every free world in the galaxy anyway. The countdown to the galactic offensive began. Ships from dozens of species gathered at secret staging areas throughout the galaxy. Human quantum communication technology allowed instant coordination across impossible distances. Dr. Choi put the finishing touches on humanity's ultimate weapon, not a device for destruction, but one for creation. The Liberation Field Generator can disable hegemony control systems across entire star systems, she explained. It breaks the neural implants they use to control slave populations. Range? Admiral Kim asked. Theoretically unlimited as long as we have quantum beacons in position. We could free every enslaved world simultaneously. The day of the galactic offensive arrived with little fanfare. Across thousands of worlds, beings who had been slaves for generations prepared to fight for their freedom. On Earth, President Lee broadcast one final message to the galaxy. Today we stand together as free beings, not as servants or masters, but as equals. Today we choose our own destiny. The attack began simultaneously across the entire galaxy. Human ships struck hegemony fleet bases while Allied forces liberated slave worlds. The Liberation Field Generators activated, breaking control implants and freeing billions of enslaved beings. War Commander Threxnall watched in horror as his communications with the hegemony capital were cut off. Rebellions were exploding across every sector, and his own fleet was receiving contradictory orders from a dozen different sources. Status report, he demanded. Communications down across 70% of hegemony space, his tactical officer reported. We're detecting major battles in every sector. The entire galaxy is in revolt. But the most shocking news came from his science officer. Commander, we're receiving surrender requests from our own ships. Crews are mutinying faster than we can replace them. The galactic revolution had begun, and nothing would ever be the same. Captain Nam stood on the bridge of the completed UES Transcendence, watching as ships from 100 different species formed up around his vessel. They were heading not just toward battle, but toward a new future for the galaxy. All ships report ready, his communication officer announced. Then let's go write history, Nam replied. Set course for the hegemony capital. It's time to end this war. The final battle for galactic freedom was about to begin. The 10 minutes were almost up, and the alien leaders had spent most of that time arguing with each other instead of making a decision. Chancellor Thrixamol kept insisting that the Confederation's superior numbers would win in the end. High Speaker Velnash sang angry songs about how primitive species should know their place. Fleet Commander Gerthak kept bubbling orders that no one was following anymore. Admiral Nam Taejun's voice came through the speakers one last time, calm and patient. Your time is up. Since you chose not to surrender, we'll have to show you what humans brought to these peace talks. The first shot came from Captain Yoon Seo-won's destroyer, Incheon's blade. But it was not the kind of attack the aliens expected. Instead of energy beams or plasma bolts, the human ship fired what looked like simple metal rods. They moved so fast they were almost invisible. And when they hit the alien cruiser Eternal Dominion, something impossible happened. The massive alien warship, protected by energy shields that had never failed before, simply stopped working. Its lights went out, its weapons powered down, and it began drifting helplessly through space. But it was not destroyed. The hull was barely damaged. What did they do to us? The captain of Eternal Dominion screamed over the communication channels. Our shields didn't stop anything. All our systems are dead. More human ships began firing their strange metal projectiles. Each shot disabled another alien vessel without destroying it. The Confederation's mighty fleet, which had terrorized dozens of species, was being taken apart piece by weapons that seemed to ignore their most advanced defenses. Impossible. Thrixmol clicked frantically. Energy shields cannot be penetrated by simple projectiles. Dr. Lee Salman looked at the alien with something that might have been pity. You're right, they can't. That's why we didn't use simple projectiles. She held up her tablet, showing a diagram that made the alien scientists in the chamber gasp with understanding. Each of those metal rods carries a small electromagnetic pulse generator. When it hits your shield, it doesn't try to break through. Instead, it makes the shield eat itself. Your shields work by creating a field of energy, Choi Do-hyun explained. Our weapons make that field unstable. The more energy you put into your shields, the faster they collapse. You're basically destroying yourselves. Admiral Park watched the battle on the main screen with professional interest. Your energy weapons have the same problem. They're very powerful, but they're predictable. Humans learned a long time ago that the best way to win a fight is to make your enemy defeat themselves. As if to prove her point, the alien flagship Hegemony's Will fired its main weapon at the human flagship. The massive energy beam should have destroyed any ship it hit. Instead, something amazing happened. The human ship's hull began to glow as it absorbed the energy. For a moment, it looked like a small star floating in space. Then the energy was redirected back at the alien ship through weapons that focused it into a beam 10 times more powerful than the original attack. Hegemony's Will's own shot, amplified and returned, tore through its hull like paper. The mighty alien flagship broke in half and began to drift apart, its crew scrambling for escape pods. You used our own weapon against us, Velnash sang in notes of pure disbelief. We learned that trick from studying your old battle records, Kim Yoonji said. You always win by using more energy than your enemies, so we built ships that can take your energy and give it back to you with interest. The space around Nexus Prime had become a graveyard of disabled alien ships, but more importantly, it had become a classroom. The Confederation was learning something they had never had to learn before, how it felt to be on the losing side. Captain Yoon Seo-won's voice came through the communication system, speaking directly to the alien commanders. This is the human destroyer Incheon's Blade. I have just disabled 12 of your cruisers without destroying a single one. Do you know why? The alien commanders didn't answer, so she continued. Because humans don't enjoy killing. We're very good at it, but we prefer to win without unnecessary death. Every ship we disabled can be repaired. Every crew member can go home to their families. This is what mercy looks like when it's backed up by superior firepower. Fleet Commander Gurthak bubbled something that sounded like choking. Superior? You have been in space for barely a century. We have ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years. Admiral Park turned to look at the water alien. And in those 10,000 years, you never had to get better. You won every fight the same way, with bigger guns and more ships. You never learned to adapt because you never had to. She gestured toward the viewing screen where human ships were still methodically disabling alien vessels with almost casual efficiency. Humans have been fighting wars since before we could write. We fought with sticks and stones, then swords and arrows, then guns and bombs. Every weapon led to a defense, every defense led to a better weapon. We learned to fight on land, on sea, in the air, and in space, Minho added. We learned to fight enemies who were stronger, faster, and better armed than we were. We learned to win by being smarter, not just by being bigger. Dr. Sumin showed the aliens another diagram on her tablet. Your ships are all built the same way, using the same basic design that worked for thousands of years. Our ships were built by people who assumed their enemies would be smarter than they were. Every human vessel has 17 different ways to disable enemy ships and 12 ways to avoid being disabled themselves. The battle was already over, but the aliens were just starting to understand how completely they had lost. Reports kept coming in from across Confederation space. Everywhere their ships met human forces, the same thing happened. The aliens' superior numbers meant nothing when their superior tactics failed. How many of our ships have you destroyed? Thrixmol asked, its voice hollow with defeat. Admiral Nam's voice answered from his flagship, None. We've disabled 437 Confederation vessels, but we haven't destroyed a single one. That was a choice, not an accident. Why? Velnash sang weakly. Because the war is already over, Nam replied. Destroying your ships wouldn't make us any safer, and it would make us no better than you. The goal was never to kill Confederation forces. The goal was to show the galaxy that the Confederation could be beaten. Captain Yoon's voice joined the conversation. Every species you enslaved is watching this battle. They're seeing their mighty oppressors disabled by weapons they've never seen before, using tactics they don't understand. The fear that kept your empire together is breaking apart. And it was true. Across Confederation space, the enslaved species were rising up with weapons and tactics that human advisors had secretly provided over the years. The great alien empire was collapsing not because humans had destroyed it, but because humans had shown everyone else that it could be destroyed. What happens now? Fleet Commander Gurthak asked, its voice small and defeated. Minho stood up and looked at each of the three alien leaders. Now you learn what justice looks like. The species you enslaved will decide what to do with you. As for humanity, we're going home. But first, Admiral Park added with that dangerous smile, we're going to make sure this never happens again. The galaxy is about to get some new rules, and humans are going to make sure everyone follows them. The Confederation's golden age of terror was over. In its place, something new was beginning, something that would be built on freedom instead of fear, on cooperation instead of conquest. The aliens had asked what humanity brought to the peace talks. Now they knew. Humanity brought the end of their empire. Kang Minho stared out the window of the human ship Soul's Promise as they moved closer to the huge alien space station. The station was bigger than anything humans had ever built. It looked like a giant metal flower floating in space, with thousands of lights blinking across its surface. Ships from different worlds moved around it like tiny insects. "Ambassador, we're getting another message from the station," said the communications officer. She looked nervous as she read from her screen. "They're telling us to follow the yellow lights to docking bay 712. Minho nodded and turned to look at Admiral Park Ji-won, who stood beside him with her arms crossed. Park had gray hair and hard eyes that had seen too many battles. She was the kind of person who could spot trouble before it started. "They sound very sure of themselves," Park said quietly, "like they've done this many times before." "Maybe they have," Minho replied. He was a tall man with kind eyes, but right now those eyes looked worried. "The messages we got from them before we came here sounded like they were talking to children." Dr. Lee Soman walked over to join them. She was young for a scientist, but she knew more about alien life than anyone else on Earth. She held a tablet with pictures of the different alien species they would meet today. "I've been studying their welcome messages," Soman said. "The way they talk about us joining their group sounds more like we're being adopted than invited." Choi Do-hyun, the team's money expert, looked up from his work. "I've been looking at the trade agreements they sent us. If we sign these, we'd basically be working for them, not with them." Kim Yoonji, who knew about different cultures, shook her head. "And the gifts they want us to bring them are mostly our weapons and military technology. That's not normal for a welcome meeting." The ship shook slightly as they connected to the alien station. Through the metal walls, they could hear the sounds of the docking systems working. Soon there was a soft sound that meant they were safely attached. "All right, everyone," Minho said. "Remember what we practiced. We're here to make friends, but we keep our eyes open. If something feels wrong, we stick together." The door to their ship opened with a hiss. Cool air flowed in, carrying strange smells that made their noses wrinkle. The hallway beyond was huge, with a ceiling so high it disappeared into darkness. The walls were covered in symbols that glowed with soft blue light. 3 aliens waited for them at the end of a long red carpet. The first one looked like a giant bug walking on 2 legs. Its body was covered in shiny black armor, and it had 4 arms that moved constantly. This was Chancellor Thrixmol of the Vextar people. The second alien looked like it was made of living crystal. Light moved through its body in patterns that hurt to look at directly. When it moved, it made soft singing sounds. This was High Speaker Velnash of the Zephyrians. The third alien was the strangest of all. It looked like a person-shaped blob of water with things floating inside it. When it talked, bubbles came out of what might have been its mouth. This was Fleet Commander Gurthak of the Hydros. "Welcome, small humans," Chancellor Thrixmol said in a voice like grinding metal. "We are pleased that you have finally decided to join civilized space." The way it said "finally" made Park's jaw tighten, but she said nothing. High Speaker Velnash made musical sounds that their translation devices turned into words. "Your species shows promise despite your primitive origins. With proper guidance, you may become useful members of our Confederation." Fleet Commander Gurthak bubbled something that sounded like laughter. "Your little ship is quite cute. We have cargo vessels larger than your biggest warships." Minho smiled politely even though he felt insulted. "Thank you for having us. We're excited to learn about your confederation and see how we might work together. Work together? Thrixmol's bug eyes clicked as it looked at the other aliens. Oh, small human, you misunderstand. You will work for us following our rules and our wisdom. This is how all young species learn to survive in the galaxy. They walked through corridors filled with aliens from dozens of different worlds. Most of them looked down at the humans with expressions that seemed to say the humans were nothing special. Some pointed and made sounds that might have been laughter. Salmon quietly took pictures with a hidden camera, recording everything she saw. The alien technology looked impressive, but she noticed it was all based on the same basic ideas. Their ships used energy weapons and force fields, just like in old human movies. Do-hyun watched the aliens trade with each other. He saw that some species carried heavy loads while others just gave orders. It reminded him of old stories about masters and slaves. Yoonji listened to the aliens talk among themselves. Even though the translation machines were supposed to change their words into human language, she could tell from their tone that they were not talking about humans as equals. They reached a huge room with windows that showed the stars outside. The ceiling was so high that clouds floated near the top. Hundreds of aliens sat in seats arranged in circles, all looking down at a small platform in the center. This is where you will present your case for joining our confederation, Velnash sang. You will tell us what you can give us and we will decide if you are worth our time. Park stepped closer to Minho and whispered, "This isn't a negotiation. It's a judgment." Minho nodded slightly. He looked around the room and saw something that made his stomach feel cold. On the walls were banners showing different worlds. Some of the banners were torn or burned. When he asked about them, Gerthak bubbled with what sounded like satisfaction. "Those represent worlds that chose not to join us willingly," the water alien said. "They learned the price of refusing our generous offer." Thrixmol clicked its mandibles together. 23 species have learned to appreciate our guidance after initially refusing. We are very patient teachers. The human delegation exchanged quick looks. This was not what they had expected. They had come hoping to make friends and trade partners. Instead, they had found bullies who were used to getting their way through threats. As they were led to rooms where they would stay during the talks, Park quietly touched a small device hidden in her uniform. Far away, invisible to alien sensors, human ships waited in the darkness between stars. The message she sent was simple. Not what we expected. Stay ready. The galaxy was about to learn something important about humans. When they came to make friends, they hoped for the best. But they always prepared for the worst. The peace talks were about to begin, but peace was already dying in the cold halls of Nexus Prime. 3 days had passed since the humans arrived at Nexus Prime, and the talks were getting worse with each hour. Kang Minho sat at a small table in the center of the huge council chamber, feeling like a mouse surrounded by cats. The aliens sat high above him in their fancy chairs, looking down like judges ready to pass sentence. Chancellor Thrixmol was the worst of them. The giant bug alien had spent the morning making jokes about how humans looked. Such tiny, soft creatures, it had said, clicking its metal-like jaws together. No armor, no claws, no natural weapons. How did you even survive on your own planet? The other aliens had laughed at this. Some made sounds like breaking glass, others gurgled like water going down a drain. All of them seemed to think humans were a funny mistake that nature had made. High Speaker Velnash had been just as bad, but in a different way. The crystal alien spoke in musical tones that sounded beautiful, until the translation machine turned them into cold, cruel words. Your art is primitive, it had sung yesterday. Your music sounds like noise. Your literature reads like the scribblings of children who have not yet learned to think. Dr. Lee Soman sat next to Minho, taking notes on everything she saw and heard. She had learned more about alien technology in 3 days than human scientists had learned in 50 years. The problem was none of it was good news. Their weapons are powerful but wasteful, she had whispered to Minho during a break. They use massive amounts of energy to create their force fields and energy beams, but they're not very precise. It's like using a hammer to perform surgery. Choi Do-yun had been studying the economic data the aliens had shared with them. What he found made him feel sick. "Ambassador," he had said quietly, "I think I know what happened to those 23 species they mentioned." He showed Minho the numbers on his tablet. "Look at this. Each time a new species joins the Confederation, the production of raw materials goes up, but the population of that species goes down. Way down." Kim Yoonji had been listening to the aliens when they thought no humans were paying attention. Her job was to understand different cultures, but what she was learning about alien culture scared her. They don't see us as people, she had told the team. They see us as things. Useful things that can work and think, but still just things. Now, on the third day, the aliens were finally getting to the point. Fleet Commander Gurthak bubbled up from its water tank and spoke in a voice that sounded like a drowning person trying to talk. Enough time has been wasted on pleasantries, the water alien said. We will now present you with our final offer. You should feel honored. We do not usually give primitive species such a generous opportunity. Thrixmal stood up on its four legs and spread its arms wide. The Galactic Trade Confederation offers humanity the status of protected species. This means we will take care of you, guide you, and keep you safe from the dangerous galaxy around you. Velnash began to sing in harmonies that would have been beautiful if the words weren't so terrible. You will surrender all military vessels to our care. You will accept our governors on your worlds. You will work in the jobs we assign to you. In return, we will protect you from extinction. Minho felt his hands clench into fists under the table. He forced himself to stay calm and speak in a steady voice. And if we prefer to remain independent? The three aliens looked at each other and made sounds that were clearly laughter. Gurthak was the first to answer. Independence is a luxury that weak species cannot afford. Those who refuse our protection often find that the galaxy is full of accidents. Space is dangerous. Thrixmal added with what might have been a smile. Ships disappear. Planets lose contact with the outside universe. Trade routes become blocked. It is very sad when these things happen. Of course, Velnash sang sweetly. Species that accept our guidance never have such problems. They learn to be happy in their new roles. The Gorvani were fighters once, always causing trouble. Now they are excellent miners. The Kelthera used to build starships. Now they grow food for the rest of us. Everyone finds their proper place eventually. Soman had been quietly recording everything with her hidden devices. During another break, she pulled Yunji aside and showed her something on her tablet. I managed to hack into their communication system, she whispered. Look at this. On the screen were messages between alien commanders. Yunji read them and felt her blood turn cold. The aliens weren't just planning to control humanity. They were planning to break them completely, just like they had done to those other 23 species. They call it the integration process, Soman explained. First, they take away the weapons and leaders. Then they separate families and move people to different worlds. After a few generations, the species forgets it was ever free. Yunji looked at the messages more carefully. And look at this part. They're already arguing about which alien group gets to control which human worlds. They've divided up Earth like it's a prize they've already won. When the talks resumed, Minho knew what he had to do. The aliens were waiting for his answer, clearly expecting him to bow down and accept their offer. Instead, he stood up and looked each of them in their alien eyes. The people of Earth thank you for your offer, he said in a clear, strong voice. But we must decline. Humanity chooses to remain free and independent. The silence that followed was like the moment before thunder. Then all three aliens began making noise at once. Thrixmal clicked and hissed angrily. Velnash made sounds like breaking crystal. Gurthak bubbled so hard that water splashed out of its tank. Foolish mammals. Thrixmal finally managed to say, You do not understand what you are refusing. This galaxy does not tolerate chaos. Order must be maintained. Gurthak's voice became dangerous and cold. We have been patient with you because you are young and stupid. But our patience has limits. Accept our protection. Or learn why the other species eventually came to beg for it. Velnash stopped making music and spoke in a voice like ice breaking. You have 1 day to reconsider. After that, we will begin teaching you the same lessons we taught the others. I promise you will not enjoy the learning process. As the human delegation was escorted back to their quarters by armed alien guards, Admiral Park Jiwon walked close to Minho. That went about as well as expected, she said quietly. Are our people ready? Minho asked without moving his lips. Park touched the hidden communicator in her uniform again. They've been ready since the moment we docked. The aliens think they're the teachers, but they're about to become students. Back in their quarters, the human team gathered around their table. Outside their windows, they could see alien warships moving into position around their small diplomatic vessel. The aliens thought they had the humans trapped. They had no idea that the humans had come to these talks prepared for exactly this moment. Earth's best military minds had spent years studying every piece of alien communication they could intercept. They knew what kind of species they were dealing with. and they had planned accordingly. "Signal our friends," Minho told Park. "Let them know the talking is over." Far away in the darkness of space, invisible to alien sensors, Admiral Nam Tae-jun received the message aboard his flagship. He smiled grimly and turned to his crew. "All ships prepare for Operation Galaxy's Wake. It's time to show these bullies what humans really brought to their peace talks." The pretending was over. The moment Minho finished saying humanity would stay free, everything changed in the Great Council chamber. The aliens stopped trying to look friendly, and their real faces showed through. Chancellor Thrixmol made a sound like metal tearing, and suddenly the chamber was full of alien soldiers. They came from hidden doors in the walls, carrying weapons that glowed with deadly energy. The bug-like soldiers moved fast on their many legs, surrounding the human delegation in seconds. "Seize them," Thrixmol ordered, its voice now full of hate instead of fake politeness. "These primitive mammals need to learn what happens when they refuse the generous offer of the Confederation." High Speaker Velnash sang a harsh song that made the air itself seem to buzz with danger.
"How foolish they are.
Do they think their tiny ship and handful of people can stand against the might of 1,000 worlds? Fleet Commander Gurthak rose higher in its water tank, bubbles streaming from what passed for its mouth. "I will enjoy watching their little vessel burn. Perhaps when their homeworld sees the wreckage, they will be more reasonable." The alien soldiers pointed their weapons at the humans, but Admiral Park Ji-won did not look afraid. Instead, she smiled in a way that made some of the soldiers take a step back. It was not a nice smile. It was the smile of someone who had been waiting for this moment. "You know," Park said calmly, "you aliens talk too much. You've been so busy showing off that you missed something important. What could primitives like you possibly teach us?" Thrixmol clicked angrily. Park reached slowly into her uniform and pulled out a small device. The alien soldiers tensed, ready to shoot, but she just held it up so everyone could see. "We didn't come here alone." She pressed a button on the device. At first, nothing seemed to happen. The aliens looked confused. Some of them started to laugh again, thinking the human device was broken or useless. Then the lights went out. Emergency lighting flickered on, casting strange red shadows across the chamber. Alarms began blaring throughout the station. An alien voice speaking their own language echoed through hidden speakers, and the translation machines made it into human words. "Unknown vessels detected. Multiple contacts appearing throughout the system." Dr. Lee Soman stood up and looked directly at the three alien leaders. "You wanted to know what humans brought to these peace talks? We brought friends." On the huge viewing screens around the chamber, space outside the station began to change. Ships appeared out of nowhere, as if they had been invisible and suddenly decided to show themselves. At first there were just a few, but then more and more became visible. The aliens stared in shock as dozens, then hundreds of human warships materialized around their precious station. These were not the small, simple vessels the aliens had expected. These were sleek, dangerous-looking ships that had been hiding right under alien noses. "Impossible," Velnash sang in notes that sounded like breaking glass. "Our sensors showed only your single diplomatic ship." Kim Yoonji smiled at the crystal alien. "Your sensors showed exactly what we wanted them to show. Humans are very good at hiding things when we need to." Choi Do-yun looked at his tablet, which was now showing him data from the human fleet. 37 battle cruisers, 85 destroyers, 42 support vessels, and one very large flagship that I don't think you're going to like very much. The main viewing screen changed to show the human flagship as it moved closer to the alien station. It was enormous, bigger than most of the alien warships, but it moved with a grace that made it look alive. Along its hull, weapons ports were opening like the eyes of some great beast waking from sleep. A new voice came through the communication system, speaking in clear human language. "Nexus Prime, this is Admiral Nam Tae-jun of the Earth Defense Fleet, commanding the flagship Busan's Fury. You are holding our diplomatic team against their will." "Release them immediately!" Fleet Commander Gurthak bubbled frantically at its communication officers. "How many ships do they have? Where did they come from?" The answer came back in panicked alien voices. "Sir, we count over 200 human vessels. They were hidden by some kind of technology we've never seen before. They appeared all throughout our defensive perimeter simultaneously." Thrixmol was no longer clicking with amusement. "This is impossible. Your species has never left your home system before. You cannot have such a fleet." Minho stood up, and now it was his turn to smile. You're right, we've never left our home system before. But that doesn't mean we haven't been busy. Did you think we would come to meet you without preparing first? Preparing for what? Felnash demanded, though its musical voice now had notes of fear in it. For this, Admiral Park said simply, for the moment when we discovered that the Great Galactic Trade Confederation was nothing but a gang of bullies who enslave anyone too weak to fight back. Soman pulled out her tablet and showed the aliens their own intercepted communications. We've been listening to your signals for 20 years. We know what you did to those 23 species. We know what you plan to do to us. The alien soldiers were looking nervous now, glancing at each other and at their leaders. Through the windows, they could see human ships taking positions around the station. The humans were not running or begging. They were getting ready to fight. Your military records were very educational, Yunji added. You always use the same tactics. Overwhelming force, energy weapons, shields that can absorb most attacks. You've never had to adapt because every species you fought used similar technology. Do-hyun looked up from his tablet again. But humans fight differently. We've been fighting each other for thousands of years. We've learned to be creative. Admiral Nam's voice came through the speakers again, and this time he sounded almost friendly. Confederation leaders, I'm going to explain something to you. Every human ship out here was designed specifically to fight your technology. We studied your weapons, your shields, your tactics. We know your weaknesses. On the screen, human ships began moving into attack formations. But these were not the simple patterns the aliens were used to. The human ships moved like a school of fish or a flock of birds, each one part of a larger pattern that was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. We didn't come here hoping to fight you, Minho said to the three alien leaders. We came hoping you were the good neighbors you pretended to be, but we prepared for the possibility that you were exactly what you turned out to be. Thrixmol tried to regain control of the situation. You may have surprised us, but we have thousands of ships throughout Confederation space. You cannot stand against all of us. Park's smile became even more dangerous. Actually, about those thousands of ships, you might want to check on them. More alien voices began coming through the communication system, and they all sounded panicked. Reports were flooding in from across Confederation space. The enslaved species that the aliens thought they had broken were rising up. Weapons caches that had been hidden for years were being opened. Ships that should have been carrying cargo were suddenly revealing themselves as warships. The 23 species you enslaved, Soman said quietly. They never forgot what freedom felt like. They were just waiting for someone to show them that the Confederation could be beaten. We've been in contact with their resistance groups for years. The great alien empire was crumbling, and it had taken less than an hour. The Confederation's strength had always been based on fear and the belief that resistance was hopeless. Once that belief was shattered, everything else fell apart. Admiral Nam's voice came through the speakers one final time. Confederation leaders, you have 10 minutes to release our diplomatic team and surrender your weapons. After that, we start showing you what human weapons can do to your pretty station. The galaxy was about to learn that when humans said they came in peace, they meant it. But when peace failed, humans came prepared for war.